Am I the astronaut for changing my father-in-law's house rules while taking care of his children? I'm 28 years old and my husband is 29. My father-in-law has 3 children, 7, 12, and a 14-year-old from his second marriage. He is currently divorced with his children's mother, and the way they divided care is that every 2 weeks the children change parents. Father-in-law is a lazy and egocentric parent. He demands a lot from the children without doing much himself. He basically acts like feeding and driving them to after-school activities is care. He doesn't have a real job, so not only they don't have stable income, but also he's a terrible example to the children. He was even worse when husband was little. Last month, father-in-law had an emergency and had to leave for a few weeks. The children's mother also had plans, so he asked my husband and I, and we agreed to take care of the kids for 2 weeks. On the first day, I already realized that those kids are overwhelmed and have way too much on their plate, which causes them to be constantly behind on their duties and makes them even more prone to try and wriggle out of some. Each had multiple chores assigned on top of walking the dog, school stuff, after-school activities, and private lessons. They are already failing at school and need private tutors. I sat them down and explained that I get it, that they have a certain way of doing things around the house, but for the next 2 weeks, it's my house, my rules, which are their main responsibilities are school related. Just like me and my husband go to work every day, they go to school and work hard there. I expect them to be in charge of their homework, try and complete it on their own, but be able to recognize when something is too difficult and tell us so that we can resolve it together. I also expect them to be aware of and responsibly manage their time. 1, in terms of house chores, since we are the adults, we will take care of most. 2, we will walk the dog together unless someone is busy with something. 3, once they are done with everything, they can do whatever they want. Honestly, the 2 weeks went super smoothly. Not going to go into details because word count, but it was great. It stopped being great when the 2 weeks ended and the kids went to their mom and then back to dad's. Father-in-law called my husband and accused us of pitting them against him because apparently now they questioned his every command, that his authority got undermined and that we have no right to do this and that he's going to have a hard time with him now. I get where he's coming from, but also 1, his rules were terrible and I feel terrible imposing them. 2, I feel like when you're leaving your children or pets with someone, you have to realize that some things will end up being done differently. Father-in-law doesn't have many other people who would be willing to take care of his children for so long, and he's bound to need us at least a few more times before they're grown, so the sooner he realizes that, the better. However, a few family members have already declared their support for him, so maybe I'm being too confident. Am I the astronaut? Comment from OP here before we dive into this. Okay, so I couldn't give that much into details because the word count on this sub, but I will gladly give more info. In terms of extracurriculars, we took them to all of them still, which were swimming lessons for 2 of them, tennis for all of them, English for 1 of them, we are not in English-speaking countries, and private tutoring at math for 2. I think it's a little much, but for the most part, they enjoy it, so I had no problem with that. In terms of house chores, I said that me and my husband will take care of most, not all. I agree that kids need responsibilities, but I feel like you can't give them so much they start failing some of them because that's not teaching responsibility, that's teaching failure. And I believe that homework, reading assigned books, and studying for tests are huge responsibilities too. In terms of what they have to do when father-in-law is in charge, he has them do way too much in my opinion, especially considering that they already have trouble at school, and then he sits on his ass all day. Like I mentioned, he doesn't have a stable job, just does some side things from time to time, so he has more than enough time to take care of the house, which he doesn't. Between all 3 of them, they were loading and unpacking the dishwasher every day, wiping down the kitchen counters daily, vacuuming and mopping their entire 3-bedroom flat twice a week, once during the weekend, doing and hanging laundry twice a week, making their own lunches to school, walking the dog before and after school. Edit. Also, if I remember correctly, they take out all of the trash most of the time, except for the glass. Recycling is mandatory here. Granted that with 3 children in the house, it gets really dirty really quick. I witnessed that myself. But still, that left father-in-law with a minority of regular chores. He pretty much only does groceries, makes dinners, washes the bathroom from time to time badly, cleans out the litter box, and walks the dog in the late evening. My rules were that they are responsible entirely for their rooms and keeping it at least accessible. Like I don't expect pristine, but the floor can't be covered in all clothes and toys with a small trail leading from the door to the bed. They clean up after themselves if they play or do homework in the living room. They take 1 small daily task each, for example, loading or unloading the dishwasher, hanging the laundry, cleaning the cat's litter box, wiping the table down after dinner. Walking the dog I treated as a bonding opportunity and a way to force them out for a bit of fresh air, which is why I was very adamant on that being mandatory for us all. Comment, and what kid wouldn't want to not do any chores? Hey, once you're done with school and you can do whatever you want, OFC, that's going to go smoothly. OP, I 100% get you, but by smoothly, I meant suddenly things got done and got done in time without any pressure. They seemed to finally get the hang of school, which earlier seemed too difficult for them. They would go back from school and get straight to their daily tasks because they knew that they were going to get rewarded by free time in the evening. A few times, me and my husband were even approached when we were cleaning and offered help by the kids because they already finished their work. They would also come to us and ask to watch a movie together in the evening once everything is done with their work. Like, no joke, this is the most chaotic household I know, and they were effortlessly sticking to a routine. Also, my come to Jesus talk wasn't really that. I just saw their swarm of screaming children fighting us and each other and accusing each other of not doing X yet while Y had to be done, being constantly late, constantly on edge, going to sleep late and oversleeping. So I announced time out and I laid my rules out because I was not going to have it for 2 entire weeks. But I felt like they need some sort of structure. And I didn't say your daddy's rules are super dumb, so we're going to change that and we're going to change it hard. I just said, okay, new rules. And that's what they are. Okay, so the question here is... That was a long story. Am I the astronaut for changing my father-in-law's house rules while taking care of his children? Thoughts? Yeah, those poor kids, Stormborn. Agreed. I'm interested to see what you guys think here first. I've got some very strong NTA feelings, but there's also a part of me that's like, if we ask someone to watch our kids, if we want things done a certain way, we request that those things are done a certain way. So even if what the rules were not harmful, like to the kid's ability to process things, talk about overstimulation. Like, wow, there's a reason these kids are struggling in school. It's because they're trying to spin 1,000 plates so he can spin none. Like, obviously that's up. Right. Yeah. You don't add kids. What is it? It was Trolls, the movie, right? When it was a knock on country music, which wasn't cool, but the way they did it was really funny. They had, one of them had a baby, and it was if they like handed him a shovel and they're like, okay, get to work. And he said, okay, daddy. That seems like he's just growing a workforce here. It's obviously not the way to treat or lead your family. Ignore all that for a second. If when he asked somebody to care for his kids, if he was like, hey, we have this structure, these things are really important, please stick to this, this, and this, none of that communication happened here. None of it. So even if there were things that were important enough to want you to stick to, none of that communication happened. He just assumed that you would run the ship as tight as he did, which he didn't really run. He made them run. You know what I mean? Even if it wasn't something terrible that he was expecting you to do or enforce, he didn't communicate it. So it doesn't matter. He had a big expectation of you to do this and has no right to bitch at you for the way that you did it, unless the way that you did it was harmful to the children. It wasn't. It was harmful to him, because now he probably has to do the same amount of work that you were doing while you were there, which is more than zero. So it causes him harm. That's what he's pissed about here. Pain creates change, right? Maybe you think this is enough pain for him to change, Candy Thunder? So, okay, so here is a possibility. If he's pissed because his workforce is revolting here and he's not going to change, he's going to enforce a greater amount of pain on the kids now to get them back in line. That's his version of, I'm going to have a hard time with them. So ultimately, this is going to end up causing those kids pain because he's going to turn that ship back around. It's complex. It's not easy. I don't think she did the wrong thing at all, but it is going to cause the kids pain.
That is exactly what he's going to do. He's going to make their life much harder. But also, I think that they need to work on their father-in-law and be like, this ain't it. This is not the way. Like, you're treating them like not even employees. You're treating them, I'm not even going to say it. And it's not the way.
The prisoners with jobs.
Prisoners with jobs, yeah. And it's kids are tiny human beings. They need their alone time. They need time to decompress. Yeah. Like,
they need more time to process than we do.
Yeah. And I can see that, like, even when the older kids interact with Navy, like, I can see when they have reached their limit of toddler time. And I'm like, hey, I got it. Like, go upstairs. Like, it's good. And she's going to scream and cry because she wants to play with them. But I'm like,
my sister.
Yeah. I'm like, you've had enough. So I know, like, I can't imagine everything in our house being the responsibility of our kids. That's not why we had them. I want them to want to help. And they do. And they don't have a problem pitching in. But if I expected it from them every single day and never gave them a choice, they would resent me for the rest of their life.